Aloha, listeners and viewers. Welcome to Intermission, a conversation series between artists. Intermission is the Hawaii Chamber Music Festival's exclusive online channel with Broadcast Hawaii. I'm your host, Chris Yick, the founder of the festival, and today we have special guest, Miss Rei Hotoda, with us. Aloha, Miss Hotoda.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Hanging in there. Yep.
For those of you who don't know, Miss Rei Hotoda is the current music director of the Fresno Philharmonic, and in addition, she is a very accomplished pianist. So yeah, we're very lucky to have her today on air with us, and we hope to learn more about you. So, I mean, how has COVID affected your career at the moment, or your
Well,
profession?
yes. Um, it's a really strange time. Everyone says it's unprecedented, and I feel like maybe it was a moment for all of us to say, put the brakes on,
For
let's
sure.
reassess everything, and really value the things that are important to us. And
Hmm.
I'm finding that during this time, I'm really finding those moments of value in my life and in my
Yeah.
career. And it's really interesting to have this time of reflection, to stop my traveling, stop my concerts. Everything had been canceled,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely. Yeah.
Now we're in month three or something of
Hmm.
sheltering in place, which is totally insane.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just been a really reflective time, but it's also been extremely challenging for the Fresno Philharmonic and many orchestras and many
Hmm.
arts organizations and musicians, most of all, right?
Yeah, I definitely think every profession has been heavily affected by COVID for sure. But I think in particular musicians have taken like the front end of it. Um, what's interesting to me is I wanted to hear your thoughts. Is I feel in some ways this situation for music has been sort of a half glass full rather than half glass empty because this is the first time musicians are starting to realize they can brand outside of just the traditional concert hall setting. Like they can now, use Zoom to talk. They can
Right.
teach lessons, and they can also do recording projects. I think they've been putting on hold because of their current schedules. I mean, have you experienced any of that musically during this time?
Absolutely. I think it's a time for experimentation. I
Hmm.
think in so many ways the classical music world has been way behind technology and
Hmm.
way behind in the availability of reaching out to new audiences in a uh, online presence. Now that it's
Absolutely.
everywhere, everyone, from the big
Yeah.
orchestras to smaller, community orchestras are really making an
Hmm.
impact. And what better way to heal, through this terrible, terrible pandemic than through music and the arts, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
like the incredible healing power of music in particular. I think it goes where words can't, right? It
Yeah.
takes us to
Absolutely.
other places, and so
Definitely.
I think it's an opportunity definitely to
Hmm.
expand all of our outreach.
So how have you kept your motivation, whether that's like score studying or, practicing piano? Because I mean, in some ways, there's no foreseeable live concerts, right? So I
Right.
feel a lot of musicians are also struggling to keep up with, repertoire or just learning new things during this time because they feel slightly discouraged with everything happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have to say, right when the pandemic hit, I couldn't listen to music, I couldn't play, I couldn't study, I could not crack open a score for maybe 4 weeks, into the
Yeah,
pandemic. There was so much fear. Do you remember that time? I mean, it was just like
yeah, it's
insane. We
crazy.
we had no idea what we were facing, how long it would be, and
Hmm.
everything just stopped. Like the world
Yeah.
just stopped. I mean, I I don't think we've ever experienced anything like that,
Hmm.
and what's amazing is it's not just one part of the world. It was like everywhere,
Everywhere.
So
Yeah.
all of our livelihoods stopped, in order to save lives. We had to
Hmm.
sequester and all of that. So it's just trying to find motivation. That's a great question. Um, I think that for me it was just uh, appreciating the moment where I could just stop. Again, just
Hmm.
being reflective, so I had this laundry list of piano pieces I wanted to learn during this, this sequestering, and you know,
Hmm.
didn't
Yeah,
happen.
no, definitely, definitely, definitely.
um, and I thought, okay, I'm going to learn French, Italian, and German and be able to speak fluently in each language. Yeah, that's still not happening. Do I know how to make a great whole chicken? Yes,
Mhm.
now I know. You know,
Definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it turns things around in a way that you never had I would have never had an opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
And so, like, again,
That's
I'm
awesome.
reassessing things and looking at ways to reach out to our Fresno community,
Hmm.
um, in California, and seeing, what are the ways to motivate my musicians. And a lot of
Yeah.
that is online presence, and we're trying to be on Facebook and be out there and let the community know that we're thriving through this, as
Yeah.
musicians and artists, and maybe not monetarily. It's been
Hmm.
really challenging, of course, to figure out the monetizing of all of this, right? I mean,
Sure.
I'd love to hear your input on your thoughts about how you might go into this in a way where musicians can get paid. I mean, what a
Hmm.
concept, all this free
Yeah.
online content is just amazing, but I hope that these musicians are getting rewarded for all their work, and I'm working really hard with my organization to push us to a way where we can make sure that the musicians are
Hmm.
compensated.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the whole monetizing thing, and I like from what I've seen so far, I don't have any necessarily particular strategies, but it seems that COVID has exposed the profession where it's showing now that even having an orchestra job, what was considered stable, is not
Right,
stable during this
right.
kind of time.
Yeah,
And it seems like the bread and butter of how to make ends meet is through big institutions. We're talking about like universities or teaching. That sort of aspect seems to be the most stable now, looking at it.
yeah.
At least thankfully for us as a festival, we're relatively small, so we're not burdened with such huge expenses. But we definitely feel like we're stalled in the sense that like we're not out there performing anymore, raising more money, or being able to even go out and talk with potential donors, sort of thing. So
Right.
that it just stalls our progress, but we're in a good position. um, how do you think the music world will look post COVID, or whenever this post COVID will happen?
Well, my hope is that it won't look the same as it has. The
Hmm.
orchestral world has I feel like we've been in this, like the gerbil in a cage, spinning our wheels over and over again. And
Hmm.
um, I feel like this is an opportune moment for change.
Yeah.
Whether it's small community changes, it doesn't even matter. I feel like there are so many things that can be improved, that we can start to look at the model in a different way. And I think we have to. I mean,
Yeah.
circumstances have kind of forced us to do that, and really start to assess what are the things that aren't working,
Hmm.
and why aren't they working, and what can we do to change that. And so that's one of the things that I'm inspired by. I wake up every morning and I'm
Yeah.
reading all kinds of books. I'm reading books on about communities and building and art relevance and all of that. And I think that's what's keeping me going, aside from the music, of course.
Hmm.
I mean, it's finding inspiration in other fields, who have
Yeah.
succeeded, and um, pre-COVID-19, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, it's a time for exploration for sure. And I think it won't. I hope it doesn't look the same as before. I hope
Yeah.
it's better. I hope it's more expansive. I mean, I think what you're doing with this festival is just amazing. How you're celebrating the
Thank
community.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, how wonderful, because I think more and more we're finding that we can make more of an impact in the community, in
Hmm.
our own communities, that it's not about fame and fortune, it's about
Hmm.
fame and fortune in the things that we value.
Absolutely. So would you say in some ways, I would hope, like, would you hope that COVID makes people appreciate arts and music more? Because before, right, it's going to the symphony, people would say, oh, maybe it's a waste of time, or maybe it's too expensive to go, or whatever the quote unquote excuse may be. But it seems like even stuff like the symphony, no more chamber concerts, people, at least from my end on Facebook and stuff, I see people are truly missing it. They not only are they bored, but it's just they missed sort of this live entertainment aspect in their life. Like, do you think in some ways this will give us some momentum as musicians to really be out there after this?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you know, I think of like composers like I've been looking at Schubert's Ninth, the Great C
Uh-huh.
Major Symphony, and he died at a very young age. He died at
Yeah.
31, and he was never into the fame and fortune. He
Hmm.
was a pauper most of his life, and he died poor. And you think of all the
Hmm.
great songs and all the great pieces that he wrote, and this great symphony that he wrote that was influenced by Beethoven. Again, this way of this community building, composers helping each other, inspiring each other.
Yeah.
I love to see more of that instead of this competitive thing, like I'm getting this commission, then it starts to like be only that person getting the
Hmm.
commission, and they're not mentoring, and they're not helping other younger composers. I'm seeing more of that, especially with Missy Mazzoli. She's a wonderful composer, composer in
Hmm.
residence of the Chicago Symphony right now, and she's got this great music lab. Gabrielle Elena Frank's another composer that's really helping younger composers and inspiring them. But going back to Schubert, I think he wrote this great symphony, the C major, um, after listening to Beethoven 9. The last movement has a quote from Beethoven 9, in the third theme, and
Hmm.
he wasn't able to get that piece performed, in his lifetime. And so it was only after 10 years after that Robert Schumann was going through his things, and Robert Schumann found this manuscript for the symphony and brought it to life. So I feel like as musicians we need to really hang on for dear life right
Yeah.
now. Really,
Absolutely.
really be more tenacious than ever. Don't give up. Don't give up writing that great symphony. Don't give up performing the best you can be. You know,
Hmm.
uh, my one of my philosophies as a musician and how I approach just everything about my life is that I am never better than anyone else.
Yeah.
No one else is better than me.
Hmm.
So I'm always going to be striving to be better. I'm
For sure.
always going to be my best. And
Hmm.
so, but I will never look down on anyone else. When you're up, when you're feeling so elated about a great performance, I'm sure you've experienced that. You're like, yeah, I kicked butt in that. I feel like I'm on the top of the world. And then there's always someone better than you.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean you didn't do your best.
For
you
sure.
know and it
Definitely.
actually pushes you further, and that's what's so amazing about being a musician. And you are a young musician, and I want to really encourage that with all young musicians, is that you attain this great level of playing or this musicianship,
Hmm.
and then there's always room to grow after that,
Yeah.
right? And there's
Definitely.
always room to make yourself even better than that. So it's like it's a progression, that you're constantly trying to achieve.
Hmm. So let's shift gears a bit now to Fresno Philharmonic.
Sure.
Obviously, this is your third season, but I read your bio and you have lots of accolades and achievements. I mean, you were conducting St. Louis, you've conducted Dallas, you've conducted Utah. I mean, let's just dive into that. How did your conducting career really start? I mean, I know you started off as pianist, but
Right.
and then you conducted all these great orchestras, and then you even made appearances at Hawaii Symphony, and
Yes.
now you know everything. All roads led you to Fresno right now, right?
Yeah, right. And so I was assistant conductor of the Dallas Symphony,
Hmm.
Winnipeg Symphony, and the Utah Symphony. I was their associate conductor. So that was great
Awesome.
because, there's this wonderful way that they're mentoring young conductors by
Hmm.
having these assistant positions. And so I learned a lot, hands-on. And from there, I was able to guest conduct these other orchestras, St. Louis
Hmm.
and Detroit Symphony as well, and travel all over. And make great music with these amazing musicians from all across the country, including the
Yeah.
Hawaii Symphony. And I have to say a big shout out to them because I had a
Yeah.
fantastic week there. And would love to come back. In fact, my concert this past season, I was supposed to go back in March
Mhm.
in 2020, and right when COVID-19 hit, they
It
canceled
was
it.
supposed to be Tchaikovsky violin concerto, right? With
Right,
Chi.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Qian. And so, I'm really fortunate to have these opportunities to work with these great orchestras and these wonderful musicians.
Hmm.
Um, and, it's a process. I mean, you learn, sometimes you make mistakes, and then you move on. And hopefully, I mean, my goal is to continue working with great orchestras. And so I wanted to have a music director position. I wanted to be able to plant my feet somewhere and say, okay, let's get to work,
Sure.
with all the experience I had with Dallas Symphony and Utah Symphony. I wanted to put those into place in a community where I
Hmm.
feel like I could make a huge impact, not just artistically, and we have over the 3 seasons that I've been there. I feel like we've grown exponentially as musicians on stage together, but
Hmm.
also community development. And again, the things that you are doing with the Hawaii Chamber Music Festival, I so encourage you, really think that it's fantastic. And
Thank you.
there's so many ways we can impact a community through the arts
Hmm.
and inspire people, and say, look, Schubert Ninth Symphony is great because of
Yeah.
this, because you can relate to this, and open all the doors that are possible and expose everyone to this wonderful art form.
Hmm. Well, I've seen, like, I follow the Fresno Phil social media, and I've seen, not only have you been posting a lot of pictures, but there seems to be a lot of excitement with every concert that you conduct, and especially the ones, I think it was Bernstein's Mambo, when you were doing like an
Oh
educational
yeah.
outreach thing. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, in some ways, it's not like people don't like music and the arts. I just feel it's just they simply have never had a foot in the door to it. Like, from my experience in Hawaii, it seems like our audience is actually more non-classical music fans before. Like, they're just normal, normal Hawaii residents sort of
Yeah.
thing, to just come into our concerts. And then after going to one of our concerts, they start to ask more questions about music and really, understand it. And they start becoming fans of it. Has that same sort of thing happened in Fresno? Like, what's the vibe of the audience there? Is there like a lot of community members just who are coming out now, or is it just like, you're just trying
I
to
feel like
reach out?
definitely, and I bring everything I can to the music
Hmm.
and on the stage. But I have also started different other programs,
Hmm.
started initiatives with the community. One of them is like very simple. It was a post-concert talk back, right? And we have
Okay,
those everywhere across the country. But this
for
one was
sure.
called Stay Tuned. And it was an opportunity for the audience to ask the soloist and I questions. So it's never in stiff and formal. It's very
Hmm.
informal. We're in the lobby. We're not talking from the stage. Again, putting down that barrier of those
Absolutely.
people are on stage, the people are in the audience, and so this is
Yeah.
the thing that I'm doing, and I feel like it's getting a lot of traction in Fresno, and people are feeling more welcomed in the concerts and
Hmm.
more engaged, and they're also personally invested now. They get an opportunity to ask, Awadaj and Pratt, or these wonderful soloists that are coming in. In fact, Robert McDuffie's coming next season, so look out
Awesome.
for that. Um, and get an opportunity to talk to these world-class musicians, anything they want. It's
Hmm.
totally open, and to have that opportunity, I think is really special. I mean, I remember growing up in Chicago and going to the
Hmm.
Chicago Symphony concerts and hearing Barenboim conduct, and wouldn't it have been amazing if, as an aspiring pianist, if I could ask him a question, and
Yeah.
hopefully wanting to conduct it someday in my life, and now I'm, doing that, it's a dream come true for me. But,
Hmm.
to ask Barenboim, like, you know, can I ask you how you're conducting this, and how did you get into it, and how would I be a conductor? I mean, what an amazing opportunity. So to make that connection with the music on stage.
Yeah.
So
So,
I mean, I think, it takes time, and it takes the right
okay.
people.
Hmm.
It takes reaching out to community leaders as well. And what I've done is also reached out to not just musician leaders in the community, but
Yeah.
you know, the Artes Americas, this Mexican,
Yeah.
museum in right next to Soroy, and no one's ever reached out to them as as an arts organization. And we did a huge Meet the Artist luncheon there, and
Sort of building relationships with music and other professions in Fresno, kind of
right,
thing.
other disciplines, yeah, other
Yeah.
arts disciplines, so I'm really excited because right now we're setting up a world premiere
Hmm.
that was supposed to happen in March. In our, I started also a new music concert series, a chamber concert series in Fresno, and little did we know that there was this little niche of wonderful audience members who love new music. And
Awesome.
so again, like discovering the wonderful diversity of
For sure.
patrons in our community. And so anyway, we were to do this world premiere by an Eastman composer named Robert
Hmm.
Morris in March. And of course, the morning of the concert, like the governor would shut down the state, like
Yeah.
no traveling, no, everyone's in place, staying in place. And I had to fly home, and the concert was canceled. And so hopefully next week, we want to do a world premiere remotely
Hmm.
on YouTube Live. So look out for that
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
to do this premiere. But what's really amazing about this premiere is not just like the musicians playing their parts individually and how we put it together, but we also collaborated with the Fresno Art Museum, because the
Oh.
concert was
Okay.
to take place at the art museum. And so we said, can we take some images from your gallery right now, and
Hmm.
embed them in this virtual performance. So
Hmm.
you'll see images from the Fresno Art Museum as well.
Oh, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. So, in your time at Fresno, I mean, in these 3 short seasons, what has your approach been to programming certain works, and how does this relate? Like, one question I actually have about conducting is like, if you're conducting, let's say, Shostakovich 8 in Dallas or Utah, but then now you're conducting Shostakovich 8 in Fresno, like, does it become not dull or boring, but does it become repetitive, or do you find like new ways to, conduct pieces that you've conducted in the past in Fresno now, or
Yeah.
is there
I
any
mean, first of
specific?
all, yeah,
Yeah, go
Shostakovich
for it.
8 is like, I just did that last year in Spokane with the Spokane
Uh-huh.
Symphony, and that is a huge pill to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is just an incredibly dark and difficult piece to sell,
Sure.
Um, but I think, I mean, I've conducted Beethoven 5 with all of these great orchestras, and we
Yeah.
just did it in Fresno. I actually did it my first season in Fresno,
Hmm.
Beethoven 5, and when it's your own orchestra, it really does feel different. I felt like I could do everything I wanted with these great orchestras. It's sometimes difficult, they have their own way of playing Beethoven 5.
Sure.
They've done it with High Tink and, all these
Yeah.
amazing conductors. But when it's my orchestra in Fresno, I felt like, oh, this is something I can craft and really dig into and really make, these lines come out more. And I had so much fun with it. But as far as programming, I feel like um, what we're doing in Fresno, and what my goal as a conductor
Hmm.
is is that we need to support the symphonic art form. And how do we do that is by commissioning and, I need to be conducting and exposing new audiences to new
Yeah.
pieces. And how do we do that without making them feel like they have to swallow, medicine?
Hmm.
In order to get to check 5, you have to listen to, this new contemporary piece by so and so, who's, you know, and so what I'm doing is I'm finding a storyline between the pieces that I'm programming, and finding, like, for instance, one of the programs I'd love to do is a piece by Gabrielena Frank called Escaramuza. and
Okay.
it's this Incan dance. It's like this wonderful. She's extracted the rhythm, but with this bitonality. Like a
Oh.
little bit of Stravinsky. It's just wonderful, wonderful dance of this native tribe, and um, and then I paired. I would love to do Bartok Concerto for Orchestra with that.
Hmm.
Bartok being the wonderful musicologist, ethnomusicologist of bringing in folk music into his music, and not just melodically, but in so many different ways. And so, that's the storyline. And I say, this is what it is to the
Hmm.
audience or to, the patrons. And do you see this through line? Do you see this, happening in between what you're hearing and how you're reacting to Bartok? And Bartok's another hard sell.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
not
Definitely.
a lot of people are open to that, especially
Of course.
newbies. Uh, and I love Bartok. I mean, I'm one of the things I love is that my family are musicians, right? And so
Mhm.
and I met through my son Constantine
Yeah.
Bello,
Who is a wonderful cellist, by the way.
who's
Like,
also at the
well,
Robert McDuffie Center for
yeah.
Strings, and we're talking about the Bartok quartets,
Hmm.
and how amazing they are, and how they were how one of them was influenced by Debussy's
Hmm.
quartet, and so um, again, it's the story that compels me to program the way I do, and so in every program. Well, actually, over the 3 years that I've been in Fresno, we've done more contemporary music than in the last 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And
So,
we're talking also not just contemporary pieces by, the male dominant
huh.
contemporary or male dominant composer world, but um, expanding it to a lot of women composers, women
Hmm.
and different ethnic groups, African American composers, composers from California, who are
Awesome.
young and vibrant and living in LA and having lots of success there. And we have them come up and say a few words. We actually commissioned the first Fresno Phil commission was by a Sri Lankan composer, friend of
Oh,
mine, named
wow.
Dinuk Wijaratne, and he wrote this piece based on the agricultural landscape of Fresno. And
Hmm. Oh,
so those kinds of things I feel like have such a great impact, not just on our community, our
wow. Hmm.
patrons, but also the larger community, because I think it says that to them that we're trying to reach out, we're trying to make our music relevant in this time and age, and even more so now after COVID-19 hit. I feel like, okay, now we have to really go
Yeah,
even more further into that.
for sure. So, in your 3 seasons there, what has been your most memorable performance? Whether that's conducting or, I mean, I heard you played piano at one of them recently.
Yes,
Um,
that's the one I think I have to pull out, is that I was so fortunate to work with Julie Albers, who also teaches at the
yeah.
Center for Strings. Fabulous cellist, principal cellist of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra,
Hmm.
and my wonderful concertmaster Stephanie Santambrogio, who was the concertmaster of Houston Symphony.
Hmm.
And so the three of us, the three women, yeah,
Yeah,
did the Beethoven triple by
that's
Beethoven,
awesome.
honoring Beethoven's 250th this year. So we started that in January. We did the concert of all Beethoven, and I played and conducted from the keyboard.
Was it? Were you nervous or anxious
Of
for that
course,
performance?
I was nervous like 6 months before the concert. No, I
But
mean, and again, I've never played that piece before, let
mhm,
alone played and conducted.
yeah.
Um, so that was a challenge. But it was so funny because I was talking to Marin Alsop about, this Beethoven festival and that she's doing with Beethoven 9, or she
Uh-huh.
was going to do this year. And I said, by the way, Marin, I'm conducting and playing Beethoven's triple in January. This is when I saw her at Ravinia last year. And she's like, wow, That sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot of work, Ray.
Well, I mean, it was also a full program, not just the triple, right? You had Fidelio and you had Eroica Symphony on there.
Yeah,
So it was just
very
like
good. Yeah.
you had your work cut out for that one.
I know, and I have to say, I felt so good after doing the triple concerto, and it was intermission. And I thought, I can relax. Oh no, I've got to get up and do Eroica Beethoven 3, the whole
Yeah.
Eroica, and so it was amazing. You know how we musicians, we are pushing ourselves, and I'm sure you felt this too.
Hmm.
And you don't think you can do anymore, and somehow the music just pulls you through, and you're just like you took a 5 hour nap, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Adrenaline
somehow
definitely helps.
yeah, the music is just, I think it's such an empowering force of nature, that you can't even, as a performer, you can't even
Hmm.
tap into until that moment.
Yeah.
You keep saying to yourself, oh yeah, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, and then in that moment it's just like, you know I felt like a 500-pound workout, weightlifter after
Yeah.
Roca. you know okay, what's next?
Well, that's actually interesting. You keep up your energy levels for conducting and stuff. Because I was actually going to ask you another aspect to the conducting. I think a lot of people don't realize for musicians, especially traveling musicians, there's exhaustion off the stage as well. I mean,
Right.
like at least from my experience, juggling school full time, flying to Hawaii for the festival, it definitely takes a toll. So I can't like. I mean, I wanted to know your thoughts on how do you approach maybe you're flying from city to city and you have to get in your score studying and you're going through different time zones. And on top of that, you might be kind of nervous for the concert. I mean, how do you facilitate and go through all of that?
Well, first of all, you have to be more than extremely prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my first thing, that I've learned,
Hmm.
in the past, because you won't eat. First of all, you won't eat, you won't sleep. Because of the time zones, you'll be waking up at 4 in the morning,
Hmm.
um, or worse, sleep at all. You're nervous, and it's interesting. Every time I'm working with these different orchestras, um, they want interviews. They want you to meet the musicians. The musicians want you to
Yeah.
go out to take you out for lunch. All of a sudden, your whole day's gone, and then you're at the
Hmm.
rehearsal.
Hmm.
And you have meetings with the music director, or not the music director, the executive director, or your soloists, and
Sure.
so you just have to be extremely prepared,
Hmm.
beyond extremely prepared, so that when you do have time to just sit in your dressing room, and this is what I've done, is like, I'll just sit in my dressing room, close the door after the rehearsal is done, like after
Hmm.
I've done everything, and just like take a moment, and drink my Gatorade or whatever I have to drink. Actually,
Hmm.
you know what? One of the things I love drinking after a rehearsal or a concert is the kombucha.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that it's enough energy to get out of the funk of being so tired.
Hmm.
Gives you just enough energy, but it's still, I'm so sensitive to all of that. Like, I feel a little buzzed after I drink it, and so I'm like, energized but somewhat relaxed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's
Absolutely.
after my rehearsals and
Hmm.
concerts. Yeah.
Hmm. So now let's shift gears to, I guess, the start of your musical career. I mean, you were trained as a pianist, and I think I'm actually very interested because I feel we have a lot of mutual connections in addition to Constantine. I mean, I heard that from Constantine, you're Mr. McDuffie's sister's like roommate or something, and then or something where like I think when I was at Hawaii, the violin shop, CK Violin, he was like,
Oh yes.
oh yeah, Nicholas is like, oh Rei Hotoda, like she was my pianist at Eastman. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So there's all these mutual connections, but I kind of want to, I guess let's talk about sort of your story in piano now. I mean,
Sure.
how did it
Okay.
start?
So I went to Eastman School of Music as a undergrad in piano performance,
Yeah.
and had a lot of friends who were conductors. And then I went to USC for graduate
Hmm.
school, and there you had to do a minor in conducting because I was getting my doctorate by then.
Hmm.
And I said, well, oh no, it was a choice between musicology or conducting. And so I said, well, the last thing I want to do is sit down and study all the time, which is what conducting is all about. Being a conductor is I'm just studying all the time.
Yeah.
So it was kind of ironic. And I said, oh, I want to go into, I want to do minor in conducting, but do my 8 recitals for my doctorate and, just play as much as possible. And so that's where I met Marjorie McDuffie at USC, and we became fast friends. Have you ever met her?
No, I have not actually. But
She's such a character, and we just hit it off right away and kept in touch ever since. And in fact, I played for her wedding.
oh,
Yeah, she asked me. I was so honored. She asked me to play for her wedding, and Bobby was there, of course. And then so at Eastman is where I met Chong or
yeah.
Nicholas.
Yeah.
And I don't know him as Nicholas. He doesn't know me as a conductor, and I don't know him as Nicholas. Anyway, so I remember at Eastman I would play for him, and he would feed me afterwards. he would make me lunch or dinner. He was very sweet, and he still is. And it was so amazing to see him in Hawaii last year at my concert, and he just showed up in my dressing room out of the blue, like no text, no email, nothing. And literally we hadn't stayed in touch, all that time. And so I instantly recognized him, and he said, Ray, I didn't know you were a conductor. That's how long we've been apart. But it was wonderful to reconnect with him, and he was very complimentary and enthusiastic. And so I welcome the chance to see him again in Hawaii.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
But I think, I think it's just, you just meet so many amazing people, and you stay in touch with them, and you keep connecting with them and collaborating with them. And for you and for Constantine, I feel like the more connections you make that are relevant, I'm talking about like projects you can do together, things that you enjoy, you don't have to like make a career out of it. Just do things you love to do together, and I find that that's what keeps the bonding relationships, really stable, but also really fun. I mean,
No, definitely, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think music, a big part of music, at least for me, is sort of like you said, the relationships you build. And I don't know if you've noticed, but for me, it's just like when I'm performing with people on stage and they are my friends off the stage as well, like there's sort of something even more special. Like there's a different kind of dynamic and chemistry, and essentially these musicians become like a second family to me off the stage. I mean, how have you felt the same throughout these years being a musician?
Absolutely. And it's the the older you get, the more collaborations you do, and the more gratifying it is. And when I worked with this composer Gene Coleman for a long time. Again, he knew me as a pianist, and he gave me one of the first opportunities as conductor to conduct some of his pieces, contemporary pieces, because no one else would, I guess, conduct them. I don't know at the time. And I was more than willing to do it for free, and just to get the experience. And when you have those relationships where someone gives you an opportunity, you just want to continue fostering that. And I felt so grateful to him. And even I think it's kind of given me the drive to help composers, and help sustain that art form, is like really support these composers, because I think he did, when I first started out. And so again, those relationships are so amazing, how they transpire, other things and other
definitely
projects.
So I mean, with all that said and done, you've had an awesome career, but or like back to sort of where it all started. I mean, what was your first musical inspiration, or what made you start piano to begin with?
Oh, okay. Well, I was 3 years old when I started piano, so I didn't have a choice. My mom said, "You're going to be a concert pianist someday." Well, I did my best. And I am. I'm grateful for that discipline at a young age to really learn how to be a musician, and what it takes and how difficult it is.
Definitely.
Practicing in and out and getting ready for, I'm sure juries and recitals and then concerts beyond that when you get out of
Yeah.
school. And um, it's just, and then maintaining is difficult.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate that background in my life as a musician, is to really be able to,
Hmm.
know what it's like to be in the orchestra in that perspective, in that way. Um, but I think I felt like getting my doctorate in piano performance and doing all that and doing competitions. I really felt like there was also another calling for me,
Hmm.
and I didn't know what it was. And I knew that composition was not something that I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And so. A lot of people encouraged me at USC. I did my doctorate recital in conducting, and I did Ligeti fragments, and I did symphonies of wind instruments by Stravinsky. I mean, that's not a
Hmm.
typical, minor in conducting program. Uh,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I loved the mixed meter. I loved doing the connecting with the ensemble in that way. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to reach out to some conductor friends and see what it's like. And so uh, it was discouraging at first, because I felt like I was learning a new instrument,
Hmm.
and um, was, it's just a totally different feeling, not feeling, but uh, discipline to be a conductor than a pianist. It is much easier for me as a
Hmm.
pianist. I could read scores and be able to absorb music, and I feel connected to the music very
Absolutely.
much. But to stand up in front of all these people and conduct and do the rehearsals, and that takes a lot of time and experience,
Hmm.
which isn't always so fun. As you know,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
as
Absolutely.
an
Absolutely.
instrumentalist, you're not practicing isn't always great.
Yeah, it's like eating vegetables. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And then you get the hang of it, and then you can
mhm.
have a slice of pizza once in a while,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
or a cold
So
pizza.
in your case, if you're wearing these two hats, conductor and pianist, right now I guess you're more conductor with the music director role, but do you ever struggle to sort of find that balance between those two things that you really love? Because I mean, you're on
Yes,
the road all the time, score
yes.
studying, and then you get home and it's like, oh, it's really late. Should I practice? Can I play piano? You know what I mean? Like,
Great, great question, Chris, because this is when I put my plug in to all of you students out there. Is that I had an amazing teacher, piano teacher, John Perry,
Mhm.
and he taught technique like you would not believe.
Mm.
And I was at the bottom of his class um, in technique, and I had to really struggle with my piano technique
Mhm.
as a graduate student, not an undergrad, as a graduate student.
Mhm.
And I suffered through a lot of that. And I have to say, I'm grateful for it now, because I cannot play for 6 months and then be able to learn the Beethoven triple without, too much pulling out my hair. But
Mhm.
I feel like there are some pieces I won't play, but
Mhm.
I feel like I have the technique in not have to practice 8 hours a day.
Mhm.
And this is the thing that I sacrificed, is my playing. And I won't do it a lot. I don't play a lot, um, performing at least.
Mhm.
I don't do solo recitals. So I know my limits as a pianist. I think that's
Mhm.
that's the answer. But also, I know what I've learned as a pianist.
Mhm.
To get my technique together and to be able to play these amazing pieces. Still, I feel so grateful for my teachers. So
Mhm.
plug into that.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's slowly wrap things up. I mean, I guess from all that's been said today, and with all the anxiety and uncertainty with COVID, I mean, is there any words of encouragement you want to offer to either aspiring artists, current musicians? Because I know a lot of my colleagues, friends, some of them are even hesitant to continue music after this because they feel, it's just proven to be unstable, and it's just maybe it's not worth it, or I
Yeah.
gotta pay the bills kind of attitude. But
Right.
others have said, there are some others who are just really, really motivated now more than ever, and just hitting the practice rooms, and they're hoping to blossom out of this pandemic. I
Right.
mean, is there anything you want to offer as words of
Sure.
encouragement, motivation?
I think again, this is a time where you have to really assess your own values. Like what's really important to you is,
Hmm.
making music and being able to, do this for a lifetime. Is it that important to you? And if it is, then go all out, Um, but also you're going to have ups and downs. I have that, every day
Hmm.
I have a different mood to how I feel with this pandemic, and how hopeful I am, and sometimes I'm not as hopeful, but I know
Hmm.
that this is my life, and I've built my career, and I'm going forward with this, but in a new way. And so I encourage people, to be more tenacious now than ever,
Hmm.
but also be open, so if you are a young musician, aspiring musician, and you feel like this is not for you, don't give up on music. Maybe get a degree in something else. Like I know some conductors, friends of mine, are thinking,
Hmm.
well, maybe I should go into um, nursing or care
Hmm.
facilities, or
Hmm.
help out in a more civic way, being more of a civic leader. There are
Yeah,
so many ways we can make impact as musicians, as artists. It
absolutely.
doesn't have to be this same way. And this is what I'm saying about the old model. It needs to be torn down, like you have to practice 8 hours a day in order to become a successful musician. No,
Hmm.
if you're like you, Chris, inventive and entrepreneurial, and opening this, way of communicating with wonderful um, interviews like this, I think, it's so great that you're doing that. And maybe that's another field that you can really, you know, grow
Yeah.
into and be an amazing musician.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so be open to those things as we move forward. And that's what I'm doing, is that, okay, well, how am I going to grow, continue to grow in this
Hmm.
time of sheltering without being with my musicians who I miss so much? Yeah.
Awesome. All right, and then the last two questions. If you could, if you had, if it was your final concert conducting, what programming, and if it's your final concert as a pianist, what would you play?
Oh my gosh. What? That's kind of morbid, Chris.
Well, like if it was like the last thing you could ever play or conduct, what would you,
Oh my gosh.
what would this repertoire selection be?
Well, okay, this is totally ego driven.
Okay, let's hear
Okay.
it.
Um, but I'd love to do either Mahler 6 or Mahler 8.
Hmm.
Probably Mahler 6 because I like that piece better. I think it's a better work. And as far as a piano piece, it's my dream to do in a recital form. I'd love to do the Goldberg variations, like memorize the whole thing, know it inside out, be able to sit down after 3 cocktails and be able to play it. That the Goldberg variations, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Miss Hotoda, and for all of you guys listening and viewing. We'll have more episodes just like this with more artists such as Miss Hotoda. And if you guys like what you hear today or like what you see, please like and subscribe to Broadcast Hawaii, and we'll be having more episodes soon. Any last thoughts or comments you want to add in before we?
Well, I'd like to say thank you, Chris, for what you're doing. Continue your hard work and don't
Thank you
give
so
up.
much. Thank you.
And I say, stay well, everyone.